We live in a time in which superheroes are the most popular characters in fiction. Comic books are selling as quickly as ever, and superhero movies are the biggest in Hollywood. And everywhere we look, we can see Spider-Man, Superman, and countless other superpowered heroes. It is therefore the ideal time for superheroes who were previously thought as uncool to emerge as the badasses they truly are. And that has happened in a lot of cases recently. Some of the most popular heroic characters have, at one point or another, been seen as, at best, guilty pleasures. But now it's more bizarre for someone not to like them. In this video, we'll run through a few examples of that. Here are 10 badass superheroes who used to be uncool. By the way, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and join the notification squad to make sure that you're always up to date with our great new videos. And before we start, can you guess the movie from these emojis? Stay tuned for the answer at the end of our video, and be sure to keep watching for fun trivia questions and fun facts along the way. Deadpool. Deadpool is, of course, the hugely likable and incredibly violent merc with a mouth. He's known for his razor-sharp wit, humorous comments, and lighthearted attitude in spite of the fact that his body is riddled with cancer. But that wasn't always the case. When Deadpool was first introduced in 1991, the character's principle was the same, but his attitude was not, and he was nowhere near as cool or likable. He didn't have that lovable jerk aura, and his remarks were far darker and more threatening than they are now. Of course, since he became the more goofy character that we now know and love, which happened around a decade after he was introduced, he is far more popular. The awful depiction of the character in 2009's X-Men Origins Wolverine was a setback, but Ryan Reynolds has since nailed the character on the big screen, and he's arguably up there with Iron Man, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and indeed Wolverine in terms of popularity now. We're really looking forward to Deadpool 2, but we have a question for you. Who do you think should play Cable? Have your say in the comments. Aquaman. For many years, Aquaman was undersold as a character, mainly by non-comic book readers who thought that all he could do was talk to fish. His presentation as a joke character in the Super Friends cartoon didn't help, and neither did his name, Aquaman. Sounds like he belongs in a bottle of colorful hand wash aimed at children, but he has recently proven how badass he really is. DC tried for years to reinvent him, perhaps too hard, but they finally got it right in 2011. They brought him back to basics, but emphasized just how powerful he was, both in terms of his physical attributes and his standing in the world. He has dominion over the seas, he can control all sea life, including essentially creating freaking sharknadoes, and is physically as tough and strong as Superman-level beings. Moreover, Jason Momoa's live-action version looks cool as hell, and when we finally see him in action in this year's Justice League movie, his reputation will surely be enhanced further. Are you looking forward to seeing Aquaman as part of the live-action Justice League? Let us know in the comments. Daredevil. In the comics, Daredevil has always been pretty cool. Not as well known as his most popular Marvel counterparts like Spider-Man and Captain America, but very cool nonetheless. But the 2003 Daredevil movie, which starred Ben Affleck, really tarnished the character's reputation. It was a terrible, terrible movie, which made anyone unfamiliar with Daredevil think the character was totally lame. But he has since come to the mainstream attention as the badass character he always was. Daredevil's comics continue to be great, but the Netflix series based on the character, which is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has rectified the issue caused by the awful movie. Charlie Cox has given us the Daredevil that the character's fans always deserved, and in turn ensured there are more fans of the character than ever before. Ben Affleck has also redeemed himself for his performance as Daredevil in the aforementioned movie, as he plays a great Batman in the DC Extended Universe, which brings us to our next entry. Batman. This one may be controversial, as Batman is one of the most iconic characters in all of fiction, let alone merely being a popular comic book hero, but his levels of coolness have gone up and down over the years. When he was first introduced, a lot of comic book readers thought the concept was silly, but he was popular nonetheless. Then came the 1960s television series, which, while popular, had mainstream television audiences thinking the character was a camp joke character. Batman's stock rose again with the 1989 Michael Keaton movie and its sequel, but the subsequent movies starring Val Kilmer and George Clooney were absolutely terrible, and to a generation, Batman was absolutely uncool. However, since Batman Begins was released in 2005, he's been seen as a badass again. Not only was the Dark Knight trilogy fantastic, but the aforementioned Ben Affleck was one of the best things about the otherwise fairly poor Batman v Superman movie in 2016. Mainstream audiences now know that given the right circumstances, bats can hang with Superman, and you have to be badass to do that. that. It's going to be awesome seeing Batman bringing the Justice League together in the DC movie universe. Batwoman. From Batman, we seamlessly move on to his female counterpart, Batwoman. Originally known as Kathy Kane, Batwoman was introduced by DC Comics as a love interest for Batman because they were worried that readers were starting to think he was gay. No, really, that's what things were like in the 1950s. He spent so much time in a cave with an elderly gentleman and a young athletic boy that rumors started to circulate that something was going on between the hero with at least one of either Alfred or Robin. DC couldn't have that, so they introduced Batwoman to prove that Batman wasn't gay. Her presentation was horrifically sexist. She became Batwoman solely to impress Batman, and instead of a utility belt, she had a shoulder bag utility case that included weapons like a powder puff. Mercifully, she was killed off and completely reinvented, and she's now a bona fide badass. Batwoman is now known as Kate Kane, and having been discharged from the Marines due to being gay under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Act, she became a vigilante inspired by Batman. She's now a far more interesting character who isn't sexist, is cool as hell, and has a very strong arch-enemy in Alice, who is basically her Joker. Would you like to see Batwoman in the DC movie universe? Let us know in the comments. Ant-Man. Ant-Man has actually always been popular in the comic books, but there are a couple things that mean he is eligible for this list. The first being that he was never meant to be a superhero at all, and the second being that non-comic book fans thought his powers were a joke for years. When he was originally introduced, Hank Pym was simply a scientist. In his first appearance, 1962's The Man in the Anthill, he shrunk himself and ended up being chased by ants and bees. However, such was the level of his popularity that Stan Lee decided he should be turned into a superhero, and he was subsequently chosen to be a founding member of the Avengers.
This is awesome.
Even after that, most people who didn't read comics couldn't take the idea of a shrinking man seriously, but they didn't realize that he maintained his full-size strength levels when he was tiny-sized. When that's factored in, it's hard not to take him seriously. More recently, the 2015 Ant-Man movie, which featured Paul Rudd as the Scott Lang version of the character, showed the hero off in live action, as did 2016's Captain America: Civil War, and he's now considered totally badass. Rudd will return as Ant-Man in 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Are you looking forward to the movie as much as we are? Sound off with a big old comment. Hawkeye. Believe it or not, when Hawkeye was first introduced in 1964, he wasn't actually a hero at all, let alone a badass one. He was a reluctant villain who went up against Iron Man, but he joined the Avengers the following year and has been a hero ever since. But he has often been considered uncool and an outsider. He's just a man in a silly purple costume with a bow and arrow after all. Jeremy Renner's version of the character said it best in 2015's Avengers: Age of Ultron.
The city's flying. We're fighting an army of robots. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
Fighting alongside the likes of a thunder god, a gamma-powered rage monster, and a man in high-tech armor has often made people wonder if Hawkeye belongs in the Avengers, but that has changed in recent years. In 2012, writer Matt Fraction and artist David Aja took over Hawkeye writing duties. They made the stories more grounded, gave him ordinary street clothes, and Clint Barton's comic books became some of the coolest and best-selling in circulation, and they're still going strong today. Moreover, the aforementioned Jeremy Renner has managed to make the character fit in and indeed look useful whilst fighting alongside superpowered allies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that has made the character cool with mainstream audiences as well. Do you think he deserves his own movie? Let us know. Swamp Thing. As beloved a character as Swamp Thing undoubtedly is, when he first came on the scene in 1971, and indeed for a while after that, he was actually pretty lame. He was called Alex Olsen and was turned into Swamp Thing when he was caught in a laboratory chemical explosion that altered his physical makeup. He remained very humanoid, even having fingernails and a six-pack, and went on to be renamed Alec Holland and roamed the countryside having adventures, kind of like Lou Ferrigno's version of the Hulk or that German Shepherd in The Littlest Hobo. A Wes Craven-directed 1982 movie based on the character didn't help matters. It depicted him in the same way that he was originally depicted in the comics and was, well, generally a load of garbage. But the character is far cooler than that these days. Swamp Thing has been awesome since Alan Moore took over writing duties in 1984 and completely reinvented the character. He became an elemental entity who took on Alex's identity when he died. He had never been human, he just thought he had been. And this newfound understanding of his existence led to him becoming truly godlike in power. He could inhabit and control all plant life on Earth and move between it as he pleased. Swamp Thing is now not to be messed with. Now that supernatural characters have been introduced in the current DC movie universe, would you like to see Swamp Thing on the big screen again? Tell us in the comments. Wolverine. This entry is a little different to the other ones on the list because Wolverine has never not been a total badass. But Hugh Jackman's 17-year-long stint as the character in the X-Men movie universe has undoubtedly made him a lot cooler than he was ever previously viewed as being. You see, if you're only familiar with Jackman's movie version of the character, you probably aren't aware that Wolverine has long been depicted as a short, dumpy little man in the comic books. To emphasize his shape, Bob Hoskins was all but set to play him in a film in the 1980s. These days, everyone knows him as the handsome, 6-foot-tall, muscular, fine example of masculinity. Gone is the yellow spandex, and in comes casual streetwear. Basically, Wolverine is a hell of a lot cooler than ever before, even though he, admittedly, wasn't exactly uncool to begin with. We can't believe that Hugh Jackman won't be coming back as Wolverine. Do you hope he changes his mind? Logan was so good. He has to come back, right? Right? Iron Man. Iron Man is now up there with Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man as one of the most popular superheroes in fiction, but that wasn't always the case. Prior to 2008, when the first Iron Man movie was released, Iron Man was nothing more than a B-list hero who constantly had second billing to the likes of Captain America, the Hulk, and Thor. In fact, the first Iron Man movie was seen as a huge risk.
What? I thought you said this was safe.
Which seems crazy when you think about it now. Don't get us wrong, Iron Man has never been unpopular. He's been liked since he first appeared back in 1963, but he was simply nowhere near as fashionable as Marvel's most popular heroes. Robert Downey Jr. is undoubtedly the main reason for the character becoming a cultural phenomenon. He has been fantastic in the role of Tony Stark in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and is now the franchise's flagship character, as well as the badass who saved the world from aliens in 2012's Avengers. The next time we'll see Downey Jr.'s Iron Man on big screen will be in this July's Spider-Man Homecoming. Are you as excited about that as we are? Tell us by commenting below. Thanks for watching our video about 10 badass superheroes who used to be uncool. We hope you enjoyed it. And the answer to the movie emoji is... Did you get the right answer? Let us know in the comments below and make sure you subscribe to our channel and sign up for notifications so you never miss an upload. If you like this video, check out our buddies over at CBR. Their videos cover the entire pop culture spectrum and are just as great as ours.